Hello, my name is Bryndis Whitson, and you're listening to the Zebras to Apples podcast, the fun and fascinating stories of supply chain logistics. Today's episode is with Halldor Thorgeirsson, and it's in regards to his company, Salties. What is Salties? Salties is a Canadian company that imports Icelandic fish that's fresh, alive in the ocean. On Monday, you can have it for dinner by Thursday. And what are the logistics involved? How does it get to your plate? That's exactly what this episode was all about. So join me in learning all about fish logistics with my friend and relative, Halldor Thorgeirsson.
So the company Salties, it's owned by my family. And that is a company that is in importing seafood, fresh seafood into Alberta and distribute it from there to, all the way, we can say, from Winnipeg in the east all the way to Vancouver in the west. So, that is what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is really exciting. And it's one of those things that I love telling about people because, you could have fresh fish that's never been frozen, that was alive in the ocean less than a week. And it's really a remarkable story, too, which we'll get into in a little bit, too.
Yes.
So how did you first get into this idea?
It was out of very selfish reason. So we are born and raised in Iceland. So the go-to protein for us was seafood. And probably more seafood than meat. And when we came to Canada, we kind of didn't actually prepare for that. The access to the same quality seafood would be different here. And in Canada, and it was in Iceland, we just took it as granted. And especially after we came to Edmonton, that it was almost non-existent. And we started to look into, how we could fix that problem. And a few years after we started to think about it, Icelandair started to fly directly to Edmonton at the time. Mm-hmm. And my brother-in-law and his wife had actually established a company that was in exporting seafood from Iceland. And we thought of maybe why not get ourselves a seafood import license, thinking about that way we could actually import seafood into Edmonton for our own self-consumption. And we went actually through with all of that. We got a license through CFIA and on and on and on. And suddenly we had established a company that had this import license for importing seafood. So we thought, maybe we should try to do something more with it than just only, do it for ourselves. And that is how Salties came to life.
And we're all the lucky for it. And so if you were a company or someone that was ordering, what kind of is the process of?
So the process is a bit different than most companies in our industry do things. So again, we want to make sure that the fish is fresh, just as it would be back home, where we lived in a small fishing village, and where we would only get fresh seafood. That would be the only seafood we would eat. So we went through and designed the processes we have in a way that when we get orders from our customers, the fish they are ordering are actually still swimming in the ocean. Mm-hmm. So the boats will go out, they will catch, they will take it to shore, the fish is clean, packed, flown into Canada and distributed often only 2 days after it was caught in the North Atlantic. So the logistics around it are quite fast, and that is kind of the magic behind it.
Right, and so it goes on. Is it still an Icelandic air flight for the most part, or?
So the process is that it is when after it's fished, it's landed. The day after, we can say the day after the fish is caught, That is when it's cleaned and packed and flown into Canada. And out of the hub it comes into, it's from there distributed through, to the city where it's actually going to be consumed at.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, a fish that is eaten on a Thursday night in Banff, for that matter,
mm-hmm.
was maybe caught on Tuesday before.
Right.
And it has taken the route from flying into Toronto, Vancouver, and flown from there into Calgary, where it goes through customs, and then straight from the airport distributed to our customers.
Well, and it's a full multimodal process because it goes on it's on a boat or a ship, then it's on a truck, then it's on a plane, then it's on a truck again, and so it fully has like extra. It's touching every area as it travels.
Yeah, that's true. It is almost touching every area,
mm-hmm.
And that is how it's done.
Well, one of my favorite stories among many, there's a few, was fairly recently where a friend purchased fish at one of the local kind of areas in Calgary, one of the local markets. And they were like, look at this great Icelandic fish. And so I sent you a message and I said, where did the fish, I think it was the halibut, come from this location? And so you were able to send me the entire, like, it came off of this moment, it was fished here, blah, 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 blah. And so then I was able to put like a message right on their Facebook post of like, this is the entire supply chain and story of your fish.
Yeah, that is so. During the time since we started, we have learned that we often get the same questions from our customers.
Mm-hmm.
People want to know where it's coming from. How was it fished? People want to know, they want the story of it. That's kind of, how it is. And it's not only seafood like that. People want to know who grew their, vegetables, or where this animal is from that they are actually eating, and how it was treated, and on and on and on. And so we started to look into, how can we actually make this story accessible to our customers. And we started to look on actually all the documentations we are required to have, first of all, to be able to export it out of the country, but also to be able to import it into Canada, the product origin and all of that. That all needs to be part of the package that follows the product. And we realized that we could actually use this to actually make, we can say, to publish it all with the product when we deliver it. So when we deliver our product, you will actually see on the delivery slip where it was landed, what boat caught it with what fishing method they used, when and where, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the boxes will tell you actually who it was that processed it, and on and on and all the way. That we just made all of this information public.
Right.
That is what we did. So when the consumer asks the questions wherever he is getting the product, if it's a seafood store or if it's at a restaurant, this information is actually available for them if that is needed.
Right. And it's a really full understanding of every piece that you have in that kind of supply chain, but also, the understanding of where is your fish coming from? How sustainable to an extent is it?
Yeah. And that is what we feel that our industry could do better. It's not necessarily only selling fish, but when especially food is crossing borders, the authority in each country, both the country that the product leaves from and also the country that it's actually entering, there's a requirement of origin.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a proof of where it's coming from. So those information, they are all there. It's just up to whoever it is that sells it to actually gather it and make it we can say, accessible. And that is what we actually did. So we in a way made a selling point out of it. Because there's all the information are backed up by documentations that follow the products crossing borders. So those are legal documents.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are like the documents that follow when we export it. They are authenticated by the Icelandic government.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's not like we are just cooking up the information. They are actually, and we have some customers that actually audit it because it make more. Well, it is important to them, so they can actually call for us to prove of the information that we hand out, and we can do that.
Yeah, which is so good. And speaking of kind of customs and imports and stuff like that, what is it like bringing product and having to deal with two different kind of import and export agencies? You have to deal with the Icelandic import and export, and you also have to deal with, Canadian customs. What's that like?
Yeah, it is. I can say that it is something that is always getting easier and easier. First of all, the longer we are in this industry, the more problem we will encounter and we will solve. So it goes into the bank of, you can say, of solutions. But at the same time, I would say that both the Icelandic government and also the Canadian has gotten easier, meaning that more is online. Things have been made more streamlined because this is food that we're importing. Well, in the beginning, we had to deal with more than one government bodies. First of all, because it's food, it's CFIA and then it was also CBSA. So both of those had to approve the import. Now there has been some changes that means that we only have to submit one application to CBSA, and that means the CFIA is part of that. So it's only one body that we actually submitted to, and so things are getting easier. We also, by time we have, we can say, we have found partners that we like to work with, in this. So there are brokerage companies that help us doing that.
Oh, good.
And the one that we are currently using is a company that we really like. Yeah, so it has been a good partnership. Same goes over in Iceland. It's making sure that we partner up with people that know what they're doing. We can say, and we making sure that we do everything correctly. That makes it easier and easier, but it is a big process, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it has to be accurate because, again, this is fresh seafood, so we can't afford anything being held up anywhere in customs or wherever just because something was missed. It needs to be constantly moving.
Well, and that's completely it. It always has to be moving, and because it's fish and there is that kind of part of the supply chain where you have to be like really careful of temperature control too.
Yeah. That's another thing. We have to make sure that when we are importing things that, because we often route through few different airports, and airport warehouses, even though they have, say coolers, there can be a big difference between the coolers. As some of those airports, we can say their warehouses, they are more in, say, importing something that need to be kept at plus 10 degrees, while our products have to be kept at plus 2. So we have to make sure that, for instance, the coolers that our products are stored at, even though it's just over for a short time, good enough to hold our products. And so big part of our job is actually to follow up on that is actually happening, and we can do so by all kinds of again, the processes we have in place, all the way from just calling and asking and all the way down to tracking the product with temperature measurement devices that we do some from time to time. So it's it is a huge process in reality to make sure that actually the fish
completely
comes into Canada, into our consumers' hand, in the state that we can say that if we would be eating it, we would like it. And that is what we often say is the ultimate goal of what we do. If we would not like to eat it, we will not sell it.
Exactly. Right. Well, and that also kind of reminds me of when you were kind of during the pandemic, and it was right at the beginning, and I remember this story of, and I think it was just because of fluctuating capacities at different airports right at that beginning, and I think there was a kind of a moment where some fish got left on a tarmac or something like that.
Yeah. So in a way, we can say that when COVID hit, it was for us a logistical nightmare.
I bet.
It was actually almost like the last kind of event to hit, and actually in a string of events that were all kind of creating their own logistical nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's kind of probably everybody has forgotten it, but there are a few years, or maybe a year or a couple of years before COVID hit, actually every single airplane, every single D-MAX airplane made by Boeing were grounded.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And us relying heavily on our product being shipped with airplanes, and notably we use actually empty spaces in commercial airlines. It's not like it's coming with freight planes. It comes with commercial airlines. Actually meant that suddenly the available flight we had from Iceland all the way to Calgary, they were reduced. I can't remember how much it was, almost like 30% or more.
Oh, wow.
Because both Icelandair and WestJet at the time, they had both decided to use D-MAX. They had already received few of them, and certainly they had to ground a big portion of their fleet.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning that almost for the longest time, every single flight was almost running on 100% capacity, meaning that they had to throw out cargo. So there were a few times that the cargo was on board, and then they realized, the plane is overbooked, there's too much luggage, they have to have a certain amount of weight capacity for fuel, so they would just throw out the cargo and take off, meaning that the cargo, meaning our fish and all the products, were just left on the tarmac.
Oh, my goodness.
That happened again and again and again. So it was almost like, we can say, for us and many other companies in similar businesses, it was a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. But it was a huge learning curve for us, and we had to adjust and all of that, and so today, again, those are a few of the things that we have left in our kind of in our memory banks. Okay, if something like this ever happen again, at least we have gone through it before.
Well, and speaking of that, I remember the one time Scott was telling me about how, because he used to help deliver, which we'll kind of talk about in a second, but he was talking about how suddenly everything in the order had to get readjusted, and that was because there had been a storm, and there was also a holiday.
Yeah, so the fish comes from the almost Arctic Circle in the North Atlantic, where if there's almost, we can often say that if you will hear about a tornado or bad weather somewhere happening in North America, eventually it's going to hit Iceland. That's just how it is. Meaning that especially in the fall and in the spring, or we can say early winter, late winter, it is almost like there's a hurricane there every single week. and so So kind of navigate between those storms, and it can often be a difficult task, because again, we have had incidents where they are loading the cargo on the planes, and because the wind is so heavy on the tamarack, they can't. And the plane will leave maybe with half of the cargo.
Oh.
So multiple times in the past, we have had to adjust our, shipment accordingly and reroute things. But again, that is just our business, and we can say that, that is our purpose, to solve those issues. So, and like someone that is smarter than me once said to me when I asked, was saying, all of those damn problems, there's nothing but problems. And he said, Halldor, if there wasn't those problems, we wouldn't have a job. So, so we have learned that this is just, part of our everyday job. Our job is to make sure that, the product our customers needs and are expecting get to their hand in the state they accept at the price they're willing to pay. So, this is just one of it. We have just come to accept that, this is just what we do. So
exactly.
Even though I sometimes say that I don't know anything about logistics, my job is almost 100% logistics.
Yep. Completely. It really is. Yeah. Surprise. Well, so just out of curiosity, and now because my mind is going back to the poor fish that didn't make it on the plane, that's sitting on the tarmac back in Iceland, or wherever, and it didn't, or Toronto, etc. What happens to the fish then? Do you have somewhere where it can quickly go into a cooler, or or a temperature controlled, and then hopefully make it on the next plane? Or what happens to?
Yeah, so when something like this happens, the first number one, item on our list is, okay, make sure that this gets into a cooler again. And again, those airports that something like this can happen in, we make sure those airports have coolers that can actually house it. So and this is, this happens, and it happens to more products than just our product. So our partners, whoever they are, if it's a warehouse staff or tamarack staff, or if it's the airline or whoever it is, they have processes in place as well. Okay, it doesn't get on the plane, let's get it into the storage it came from. So it will be taken back into the cooler. Item number two is, okay, reroute it. Where's the next? When is the next plane available? And let's get it onto that plane and get that going. So sometimes it arrives in two parts, sometimes in three parts, but most, I would say 90-some percent, it arrives in one shipment. So it's and in most cases, even though it happens, no one will even notice anything. If our customers, they will not notice that something like this happened. Because again, this is just part of the things we have to do, and we have to follow up on. We have to be keeping an eye on what is coming, how it's coming, and what is happening. And that is, and again, by choosing the right partners that we can trust and know our processes, then, it works.
Right. And that's a huge thing, as a small business, when you're starting up, going from like all of the layers as you scale up. And so, I was kind of alluding to it a few minutes ago. At the beginning, it was a different distribution model than it is now.
Yeah.
And so, I think you probably did a lot of, the initial deliveries, or you had someone like Scott helping you with deliveries, and then it, scales up in different kind of areas too.
Yeah, it does. And again, it's all about, making some kind of connections, because there is someone that contacts you with the need that you want to be able to fulfill. So you start looking into, okay, who can help us getting the product from this point to them. And so it's kind of like creating a channel that works. And then use that channel again and again and again until you maybe find something better, or just, that is the business. It's just moving products from A to B and B to C and C to D and all the way until the customer has it in hand, and everything is fulfilled in the way it was supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm. When you think back to the early days of kind of setting things up, was there any kind of moments where you're like, kind of thought, oh my goodness, what happened there? But that you can actually share?
I would say that probably those moments was probably, I would say, when we realized, what toll it would take when the D-Maxes were grounded.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably one of the bigger blows that we got, because it meant that suddenly the airlines, they didn't have the capacity to move the product they have been doing up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And there was for us, there was really no replacement.
Right.
That is just how it was. But it's like often, that it was a problem that a lot of clever minds put their thought into, and figured out, okay, there's a way around it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm talking about people that run airlines.
Right.
And,
exactly.
Yeah, and they created solutions that worked, even though it was maybe not as good as it used to be prior, but it worked long enough until either other type of airplanes filled the gap, or until they managed to actually start using the D-Maxes again.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So it was that was probably one of the moments, because for the few days after this was announced, we were wondering, okay, is our company going to live? Is because if we don't have a mean to get it from Iceland and into Canada, and from the point in Canada where it's going to be arriving at until on to our customers in that time frame we have, then there would really there would not be purpose, for us to be in this business.
Fully.
Mm.
Well, and especially, I'm sure, during the pandemic as well, that was also.
Yeah, and then the pandemic, because again, our business is based on using empty space in commercial airlines, and there was almost no airplanes coming into Canada at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So again, we had to figure out a new way. How are we going to get it into Canada? And yeah, that was another blow. And
mm-hmm.
So we often say that, okay, those are probably the biggest blows that we can have in our industry. So we have seen it all until something else happens.
Well, and it's other moments too, because we've received a few messages, not as many, but every once in a while we get a random, message from you saying, well, we've got an extra box of 11 kilograms of halibut or cod or whatever. Do you want it? But I think, because sometimes one order probably falls through, and suddenly we've got, a whole bunch of fish on our hands.
Yeah, sometimes, mistakes happen,
mm-hmm.
Boxes sent that no one asked for, or, shipment gets mixed,
mm-hmm.
and, something happens, and then we try to solve it the best way we can. It doesn't matter who creates mistake. We try mm-hmm. to, make sure that things are just not wasted.
Right.
So we try to, make something out of it.
Exactly.
Like giving you a call and say, hey, would you like a box of halibut?
Yeah, which actually made for a really excellent Christmas gift. Yeah. We had fun. We drove around all of Calgary handing out fish. Because I think we ended up with 8 16 fillets or something. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So it's but it I have to say though that it's nowadays it almost doesn't happen anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and that is just things get smoother. We realize that maybe something might be not clear enough, and so we change the process, and we get better and better, one kind of step at a time. And so this is more rare now than it was in the past.
Yeah, but that also kind of reminds me too, because you've got like had two different models because you were originally just delivering to major companies, restaurants, food establishments. And then you also do have the, kind of delivery directly to the home as well.
Yeah. So that is it started like this. We would be selling to friends and families,
Hmm.
and so they often started to spread the news. So we had people calling and say, hey, that person or that person, told me that they got their fish from you, and can I get fish? So that is kind of how that started.
Hmm.
We it was not necessarily planned, but then we realized that okay, maybe the market is larger for that than we thought it was, and so that is how we started. That we started to sell to through home deliveries.
Hmm. Well, and it was kind of going back just as an aside as another fun story that I personally remember is in delivery because Scott had to do the original kind of deliveries or helping with that. And there was one time when it was like almost a full fish that arrived and it even had the fins coming out the side and it was a very big box. And then he had to try to navigate them down very small, narrow stairs at a restaurant. But yeah, it was this entire box of fish that, he had to start to maneuver too.
Yeah, they can be large. Those and that is why one of the reasons why we import from Iceland. It's not only that that is fish from our country. It's also because Icelandic fisheries is probably one of the most sustainable
Hmm.
in the world, and have been controlled, in a way to make it sustainable for decades, meaning that we have fish species thriving around Iceland that maybe, have almost gone extinct. For instance, here in Canada,
Hmm.
is like cod, for instance. We One of the products we specialize in importing is whole cod, and the whole cod we import is a kind of, we can say, semi-large of what actually is cod, because the largest individuals we don't have boxes to ship it in.
Hmm.
So we have to, but we though it comes in a relatively large boxes, but there's a limit on actually what can go on a plane, weight wise and otherwise. And but those boxes, they are an industry. They are called coffins.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so we get those whole cod or whole halibut or whole wolfish or whatever it is in those boxes, often because how large the individuals are. And everybody knows that restaurants can be small and they can be in older buildings where the corridors are tight. And
Hmm.
so it can be it's an art actually often to get those boxes into the kitchens.
Exactly. Well, and so when you're actually packaging, can you explain just a little bit of what the packaging is? Styrofoam, or is it big? What's in packaging?
So yeah, what's in packaging? Packaging is, we can say, three kind of. So it comes in a styrofoam box, but it is inside a bag in the styrofoam box, and then there's another bag around the styrofoam box. So we can say there are three layers of packaging,
Hmm.
and everything has a purpose. It means that say the styrofoam box for some reason breaks. because something falls onto it, while it's going through the chain of custody in transport, for instance. Normally, if that happens, the other two membranes, which is the outer bag or inner bag, they will hold. So the product or the quality of the product is not going to be jeopardized. Same if the outer bag is ripped, you still have the styrofoam and you still have the inner bag.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of that is how it's all shipped. It is in those three layers, two plastic layers and then the styrofoam box. And the styrofoam box makes sure it's kept cool. Then it's moved from one cooler into the next.
Right.
Yeah. So it's that is kind of the idea behind the packaging.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was thinking back to probably right near the beginning when we ordered a whole bunch of langostinas. They were tiny little fish or scampies, and almost like mini lobster tails, and they all came in that box, but it was just three different kind of packaging, covering. Is there kind of any ice, water, something to keep it cool that's in that packaging, or is it just
well it depends. So normally it is, there's always, with every single product, is the fresh product is, there's almost like a small bag that is either filled with gel or water that has been frozen. But the main cooling effect actually comes from the product itself. So say that we are moving maybe a box of where there's a 25 kilograms of whole cod inside of it. The packaging facility, they will actually cool the cod down as soon as it comes off boat. Then it's often put into, it's not, nowadays it's not even ice. It's put into super chilled water that has been loaded with carbon dioxide. And so the fish is dipped in this solution, kind of. So it actually cools down the fish super rapidly down to -2. So when they put the fish into the box, it is actually -2, but it's not frozen.
Okay.
And that is actually that cooling down to -2 put into the styrofoam box, and then from there is taken into coolers, for instance at the first airport, and that is actually what keeps it cool. So even though we put it on an airplane and it's maybe there for 4 or 5 hours, it doesn't really drop that much in temperature. And when it's taken off the airplane and into the coolers at the receiving airport, the same thing. Even though the sun is shining and it's +30, it really doesn't drop that much. But then it again goes into that cooler, so it is again kicked down to the desired temperature. But it's more for the smaller boxes, which may be 5 kilos or less, where they add those gel packs, basically to increase the weight or the mass, because it really is the mass that keeps it cold. It's just having the whole mass chill down.
Oh wow! Yeah,
so,
it would be.
Yeah, so that is kind of how it's kept cold. It's so relatively, if you think about it, that small bag that you maybe see in a box, it only has a tiny effect on the cooling. It's actually the initial cooling of the product itself that has the biggest impact.
What is your favorite fish or product for yourself to import?
Oh man, it's almost like asking, what child of us is your favorite? So when I grew up, growing up in Iceland, we had to eat the fish that was hard to export. Yeah, that is how it was. So, for instance, when I was a kid, there was not much money in exporting haddock, because at that time the only people that would be eating haddock would be either people in Iceland or people that didn't have a lot of money in Europe, say England or Scotland.
Okay.
And so we ate a lot of haddock, and probably haddock is the one that is, the go-to fish for us today. But then we also have cod. Cod is something very similar to haddock in taste, but, even texture a little bit different. Then we have all kinds like tusk. Tusk is one kind of versatile we go more and more often to, today, as you can do so many things with tusk. Tusk is almost tastes very similar to Canadian lobster. And you can almost do the same with it. You can do even lobster roll out of it, but it's so much more affordable than that. The best fish and chips you will ever get is from tusk. Absolutely. It's like almost like making just think about it. It's like a fish and chips out of lobster.
That sounds amazing. I request that next time.
Yeah. And then we have, down to fish like wolffish. It's something that is as well incredibly good. Lemon sole, the Atlantic lemon sole, is a delicate fish that doesn't need much of cooking, and so I don't know what is the best. I don't know.
It sounds like each one has their favorite.
Yeah, I would say probably scampi. Scampi is probably our favorite, absolute favorite species we get. That is something that we got used to when we were kids, because again at that time there was not a big market for it, but now it has turned into the most valuable export. But yeah, probably scampi. I would say scampi. I could eat that in the morning, afternoon, and evenings.
I would. Yes, that sounds exactly, because I think it was the scampi that we got, and I remember our next door neighbors, we gave them one or two pieces, and their family has owned restaurants in the past, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, my uncle will be jealous."
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah. If you were to give someone advice that was either entering the industry, thinking of starting their own business, etc., what piece of advice would you give?
I would probably say that, it really doesn't matter what you want to sell, like if it's a service or if it's a product. Make sure that you test it out, in some way before you start. Make sure that people are willing to pay for it, but you need to be able to survive.
Right.
Because in reality, I would say an idea is never better than actually what some other people are willing to pay for it. That is just the truth of it. Doesn't matter how much we love fish, and we have tried to sell all kinds of fish, but some fish that, even though it's very good tasting, doesn't sell in Canada, and that really has only to do with that people are not willing to pay for it. That is just how it is. So, and that can be for the whole business itself, and that I would say that would be my single best advice. Make sure that people are willing to pay for it, what you need.
Well, I really appreciate our conversation. I think it showcases to me those interconnections, the intermodal piece, and it's such a great story. And I love the fact that, as I try to explain it, just in my terms to someone who has no concept, and then I explain it's alive in the ocean on Sunday, Monday. You make your order on Monday, Tuesday. It's fished on, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's packaged, and you can have it for dinner on Thursday.
That is how it is, and that is how it is supposed to be.
Exactly. And it's fresh and never frozen, alive in the ocean, and on your plate within a week.
Yeah, and
from the other side of the country.
It's like people often say to us when they get our seafood and see our seafood for the first time, they say, wow, there's no fish smell of it. It doesn't smell like fish. And we say, well, what is called a fish smell is really smell of a product that has gone bad. And you really shouldn't be eating it.
Right.
It's the same if you were buying meat and it would be smelling like it would be smelling like death or something rotten. You shouldn't be eating it. That is just how it is. It shouldn't be, it should smell like the ocean, not like something, bad.
Right.
And fish is something that is, there's probably not a protein that is as easy to cook in reality. Like one of our customers said, if it takes you more than 30 minutes to make a meal out of seafood, you're doing something wrong.
Interesting. That's a really great way to think about it. So I really, really appreciate the conversation.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to this Zebras to Apples podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed the showcase of the fun and fascinating stories of supply chain logistics. If you liked this episode, I would love it if you could give it a rating and review. For more information about this topic, you can go to zebrastoapples.com or follow Zebras to Apples on the social media platform of your choosing, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter X, Blue Sky, or LinkedIn. You can support the show on Patreon. Also, check out the show notes below. Please join me again for another episode of Zebras to Apples. Have a wonderful day.